are in a stronger position in the future. As a formal consultation is about to start with staff impacted, it would not be appropriate to share details of the proposed restructure until those staff have had the opportunity to comment and plans have been finalised with staff comments taken into consideration. We are therefore not in a position to provide a commitment around the new structure at the present time. However, whilst the restructure is intended to result in some changes to how the library service is managed and delivered, it is confirmed that there are no proposals to reduce frontline staffing or the number of venues or opening hours. The proposed restructure critically protects frontline services and those services that are most important to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gittins. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Buckley?
Yes, I do. So this morning at the Performance Management Committee, we heard how reducing the times that the telephones will be answered will save the council £93,000. And here we're hearing that changing the way that libraries deliver their provision will save a further £241,000. We're constantly told there'll be no redundancies, but we're also hearing about how the organisation has to be transformed into the future.
Councillor Buckley, is this a question or a statement?
It's a long-winded question. Well,
Can I have a short-winded version, please?
So this morning you confirmed that whilst you don't intend to make any people redundant, that posts may be deleted, and I wonder if you could confirm whether that applies to libraries. And secondly, as we heard with the phone calls, this may be our more elderly, vulnerable residents, might be the same people who use libraries and use the telephone to contact the council. So can you assure
Councillor
me
Buckley, that's nothing to do with
that it's not a double whammy?
Earlier on. So,
not a double whammy for our most
Councillor
vulnerable
Gittins,
residents?
if you'd like to answer the question regarding the first part of Councillor Buckley's question, but the second part is not relevant to this question.
Well, just to say that, from a redundancies point of view, I mean, we can't make any promises around that because it is a library restructure. Okay.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is scrutiny items. There are no scrutiny items today. Item number 7, which brings us to the one and only report on the agenda today, which is the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill and the reforms to the National Planning Policy Consultation. Councillor Richard Marshall.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Richard Marshall, Portfolio Holder for Highways and Regulatory Services. Government is currently consulting on changes to national planning policy. The consultation is seeking views on the proposed approach to updating the National Planning Policy Framework, as known as the NPPF, as well as seeking views on a proposed approach to preparing national development management policies. This is of relevance to Shropshire Council, as national policy must be taken into account when preparing a local plan, which is a material consideration when deciding on planning applications. Transitional arrangements would mean that there are no significant implications for the local plan currently, subject to examination in public. Changes to national policy can have an impact on the achievement of the Shropshire plan. It is, however, generally considered that the changes proposed in this instance can positively contribute, particularly to the healthy environment and healthy economy strands. The consultation prospectus distinguishes between those specific immediate changes to the NPPF, which, subject to outcome of the consultation, will come into effect from spring 23, and a range of wider proposals to the planning system, which will require further consultation once a bill has received royal assent. The consultation prospectus also sets out the envisaged role for national development management policies and asks for initial feedback on their implementation. Appendix 1 to this report sets out the proposed response to the consultation prospectus and responds, where appropriate, to the specific questions asked. In responding, it has been important to reflect upon the implications for Shropshire, especially considering the characteristics of the county, the aspirations set out in the Shropshire Plan, and, of significant importance, the stage of plan making with the Council's local plan review. In drafting the proposed response set out in Appendix 1, officers have engaged Shropshire Council members through a virtual briefing session on the 8th of February with all members invited. There has also been a meeting of the cross-party local plan members group to discuss the response. In broad summary, the proposed responses to the consultation seek to provide positive feedback to both the principle and detail where known to the proposed changes to national planning policy. It is considered the changes proposed would provide additional protection for councils against unplanned speculative development and provide a positive evolution of thought around the implementation of the housing delivery and supply test. In view of the urgent need to submit the Council's consultation response on the 2nd of March 2023 to meet the deadline for responses, the call-in and urgency mechanism in paragraph 17 of the overview and scrutiny procedure rules will need to be applied to ensure that the response can be submitted within the required timescale, i.e. 2nd of March 23. Therefore, I move that we approve the recommendations set out in 2.1 and 2.2 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Do I have a seconder for that report?
Happy to second. Leader Cecilia Motley, portfolio holder for adult social care. Hang on, what else is it? Public health and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I say thank you to the appropriate Cabinet members for holding these briefing sessions, both to all members and the member group who looks at it. I think it ironed out a lot of the questions and problems that members raised so that this can go from the council, hopefully with full support of all members. Just have one small supplementary. And I've looked through it and I think I was given the number, but just confirmation about the number of affordable homes that need to be built according to the size of the development. Government changed it to 10, and those developments below 10 did not have to build any affordable homes from memory. And we did discuss that at some time. So is this incorporated in it? Can there some assurance be given or some indication of where this is covered in this submission? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Evans. I'm going to come back to Councillor Marshall, but we have got Abbey West, and also we've got Tracy Dark online. So we've got the experts in the room. Richard.
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Evans for noting how the administration does work transparently and involve other members with the consultation and briefs that we've submitted. As the leader has just said, I do have the experts. I'm fortunate to have Eddie West in the room with us, who will answer the technical questions.
Eddie, good to see you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you very much. Just on that specific point, which Councillor Evans has raised, in terms of affordable housing rates, and you're correct about the I suppose the levels in Shropshire that we are applying that to as part of open market housing development. The consultation which we are replying to doesn't specifically comment on that, but we have taken the opportunity to raise that in our response because we think it's a very important thing for Shropshire. And we didn't necessarily agree when the government introduced that a number of years ago. So we're taking this as a good opportunity for us to raise that within the Shropshire context that will help us to deliver increased levels of affordable housing. So it's not a specific question which they've raised, but we've taken the opportunity to raise that and potentially rely more heavily on localised evidence of need to determine where that particular threshold applies in terms of delivery.
Councillor Evans.
Through you, Chairman. So the neighbourhood plans is where you are suggesting this could well be given indication. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what I'm saying specifically, but what I'm saying is that neighbourhood plans as well as local plans have to adhere to national policy. At this point in the process, that policy applies a threshold for the delivery of affordable housing, which in a Shropshire context is, it used to be one house and more, that the government changes a few years ago increased that particular threshold. This consultation isn't specifically raising that, but we've taken the opportunity to raise that as a Shropshire characteristic applied particularly in rural areas, that we think we need an opportunity to highlight this is a mechanism which could be useful for us in the future. So we've taken the opportunity to, not specifically as part of neighbourhood plans, but more generally as part of changes to national policy.
Thank you, Eddie. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. Yes, in the same vein, I wasn't the member from our group that went to the planning group, so apologies if it's been covered. But in the same vein, I was interested in the sections that refer to small sites and that ask whether there are any other suggestions or proposals that could be included. And the issue that often is raised is around drainage. So those smaller sites, I think it's fewer than 7 houses, the drainage checks are only done as a desk exercise at the moment, not a site visit. And it asks for examples of best practice. And I believe in Scotland, they've reduced that down to a much smaller site. So even a single house would have to have a site visit to check that the drainage matches the plans. And there's so many examples in Shropshire where the council has had to put in resources to go back after the event because of problems with drainage, which could easily have been monitored earlier on. And the officers don't have the resource and can't focus it because it's not actually legislation, it's not required to do that visit. So is this another moment to think about that? Obviously, there's the much bigger picture, isn't there, about sewerage and pollution and how new houses, drainage mustn't contribute too much to that. Is there two things there that could be squeezed in whilst we've got our thinking caps on? Eddie?
I would say this consultation is pitched more at the strategic level than that. I think what they're asking councils to comment on at the moment is a set number of questions, and there's a number of them, and we sort to actually respond to each one of those. As I said, we've been generally positive, but where we've taken the opportunity to raise a specific issue in the context of those questions, like in the case of affordable housing, we've utilised that opportunity. I suspect in this instance, that's a bit too specific in my view. So I don't think it chimes very well with this consultation. But I'm happy if others are happy to. I mean, we could include some reference on that as part of a minor amendment if others were minded to. But I think it doesn't really fit into what the consultation is about in this instance.
There's a lot of focus on smaller sites, though.
Yeah.
It could just be
Through the
chair. So whether it could be added to that sort of list of issues around smaller sites.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just think we've got to be a little bit careful, and I think I agree with Eddie as well. We've got to answer the specific questions that are asked as part of the full consultation. If we delve too much into the minutiae of our specific problems, I think that will get lost in the overall consultation anyway, because like many of these things, the questions there and they all get compiled to see the answers. So I actually, at this stage of the process of the consultation, I can't see any benefit for us to go into minute details on things like drainage in small numbers of houses.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Marshall. I think there's also probably another route to that. Councillor Motley?
Thank you very much indeed, Eddie. Interesting issue about the number of houses that can be built before an allowance for affordable housing kicks in. And actually, this is an issue that has been raised consistently over the years by a lot of rural authorities under the guise of the Rural Services Network. It does seem to me that the more that we do actually make a case for that, the more helpful it's going to be for other authorities that are drawing up their local plans who also feel very strongly about this. And I think there will be safety in numbers in this, and that's not meant to be a pun at all. But I do think that it's really important if we can make something of that, because I think that it will give the green light then to others and actually raise it up the agenda as far as local plans and inspecting local plans is concerned.
Yeah, thank you, Cecile. I think the situation with this is that obviously it does talk about affordable housing, so we use the opportunity to doesn't ask us that question, but we've used the opportunity to put that in. I think the situation around the drainage is a slightly different one. I don't deny that at some point it would be interesting to look at that situation via another route. Eddie, is there anything else, while we've got you, is there anything else that you think we do need to know about this document that we haven't said anything about today?
Well, obviously, it does raise a number of important issues that I think a lot of people in the room are familiar with, including things like 5-year housing land supply. It does talk about that in terms of the benefits of councils having an up-to-date local plan in place. It, for want of another way, I suppose it's a reward for councils who go through that process to get a plan in place to offer certainty to local communities around where development is going to happen. The whole consultation, or a lot of the consultation, is around responding to the concerns of residents around speculative developments, and that is a really key aspect of that, particularly around 5-year housing land supply. We've all been there in the past. We know that it's a concern. It's a thing which continues to be there, but it's something they're trying to sort of, I suppose, clarify here. The changes proposed would help us in that respect, and it would help communities on that respect. So that's a key aspect. In terms of housing numbers and housing and overall housing need, a lot of the changes proposed around this idea of the standard methodology, which I won't go into, but basically there's a standard methodology around housing need and where you begin. That has been a really big issue for some councils across the country, mostly urban councils with particular issues and particular challenges around that. It's not so much of a challenge for Shropshire, which is why we've taken this opportunity to say, it's not necessarily having immediate impacts on the Shropshire local plan as we go through our examination, but it will have important implications for maybe next time we come to planning. So I think it's generally positive, I would say, from a council perspective on this one. But we've taken the opportunity to raise points of clarity and points such as the affordable housing, where we feel as though we need a bit more reassurance on that, or we require a bit more reassurance.
And can I ask what the timescales are now? Because we obviously have to get this consultation. Is it tomorrow we send it back?
It is tomorrow, yes.
Which is hence the meeting today. And government are looking to lay this before Parliament quite quickly, are they not?
There is quite a complex arrangement, I would say, particularly around what they're asking us to reply to now and what they might be asking us in the future. The transitional arrangements aspect of the consultation was quite complex, but there are a range of changes that they want to make early. And when we say early, we're talking the spring this year, so within a matter of weeks. Obviously, we presume having looked at all the consultation responses, one would hope, and they are set out, and they include things like alterations to the idea that councils with an up-to-date local plan would have a reduced requirement on 5-year housing land supply. So there's these kind of early arrangements, and then there's more longer-term arrangements, which are due to come in at the back end of next year, after the levelling up bill has achieved royal assent. So it's a bit of a complex arrangement, but there are some immediate implications here. But those immediate implications won't impact Shropshire Council as we go through the local plan because of the transitional arrangements.
Okay, thank you. That brings some clarity to that. Okay, I see no other hands in the room. Thank you, Eddie. I know that there was a lot of work involved in this as well. So thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Tracy. I have a proposer for that. I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. That brings us to the end of the Cabinet meeting for the 1st of March. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie.